Back in February 8th of 2002, Mr. Lee Heist, who's sitting to my right, had reported to us that his wife Brenda was missing. It was a Friday afternoon. He got a call from his family, from his children, saying that their mother was not home. Once Mr. Heist returned home and realized that something just wasn't right, Brenda's normally home all the time after school, so that he called and reported that to us, that she's been missing. An extensive investigation was conducted at that point, involving local, state, and federal agencies for months following that. Neighbors, relatives, co-workers were all interviewed. Dozens of interviews took place to no avail. At that time, the one thing that was consistent was everybody that knew Brenda told us that there was absolutely no way that Brenda would leave her children behind. They were convinced something happened. And as our investigation continued, we too believed and feared that something had happened to Brenda. As time went on, the investigation became stale, and life moved on for the Heist family. In 2010, Mr. Lee Heist filed a petition to the Lancaster County Court of Common Pleas to declare his wife deceased, which was granted. Afterwards, the Liddittsboro Police Department invited the Lancaster County Major Crimes Unit, which is detectives from all over the county, invited to be involved in a cold case investigation to reopen the case and try to figure out if there was something that we missed. We opened that investigation with dozens of detectives from around the county. We interviewed everybody that we interviewed that day and the months leading up afterwards. And we also interviewed some additional witnesses, and we went over all of our evidence that was gathered that day. That cold case investigation led to a little bit more information that we did not have. However, that case then became stale as well. Until just this past Friday evening, when we got that call from the Sheriff's Department in Monroe County in Key Largo, Florida. This past Monday, I traveled down to Florida to interview Brenda Heist myself and to find out what happened that day, how she left, why she left, and that where she'd been for the last 11 years. And during my interview with her, she explained to me that on that Friday that she disappeared, she was applying for housing assistance when she was going to be starting living on her own with her children due to an amicable divorce that was going on between her and her husband. She was denied the financial assistance, which led her to go to a nearby park that day, where she sat and she cried, and feeling sorry for herself, wondering how she was going to survive with her salary and raising 2 children. And as she sat and cried in that park, she was approached by 3 individuals, a male and 2 females, where they sat and they comforted her. And as they were speaking with her, they explained to her that they were homeless and that they travel up and down the East Coast. And after speaking to her for about an hour, she told me that they invited her to go along with her. And she explained to me that she just snapped, and on a whim, she made the decision that at that point, she was going to go along with this homeless group and travel down towards Florida. She turned her back on her family, she turned her back on her friends, on her coworkers, and literally she turned her back on her life and started a whole new life within this homeless community. They hitchhiked from Lancaster County down to Florida, where they traveled along Route 95 together, catching rides here and there, and she explained that it took her about a month to get down there. And once she arrived in Key West, Florida, there she lived as a homeless person for 2 years. And she described that to me that she slept under bridges, she slept in tents in woods. She was able to eat by going to restaurants around the area that were closing at night, and she was able to get their food that they were throwing away. within 2 years of living as a homeless person, then she met a gentleman where she moved into a camper with him and lived in a campground down off of Key West, on and off for approximately 7 years, until that relationship turned bad, and she explained she needed to get out of there. And she chose that living on the streets and living as a homeless person was a better option for her. And in fact, she actually enjoyed it. So there she lived on the streets for the past 2 years, until she explained to me that she just couldn't take it any longer. And in her words, her travels had come to the end of her rope, and she decided that she had no other option, and she decided to turn herself into the sheriff's department down there.